Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Right. And that's what I was telling him was like, could you is it theoretically possible to make this dog sit here? Yeah, but at what cost? That's not something that we want to do. We want this dog to understand that the walk, number one, should be an enjoyable thing. The dog should have, he should be structured enough with the heel and everything that it becomes a fruitful time for him to not only be outside and enjoy life, but also to learn how to be calm and be present and just exist without always needing a thought taking over his head one after another. But also that if something's going on, dad's got your back. I'm not going to make you sit next to this dog. I'm not going to hold you to something that's unfair or unrealistic, because ultimately you just end up shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. I've got a video on that topic, actually. I'm considering the dog. It's called Stop Disagreeing with Your Dog. And it's all about people who have a reactive dog and they're walking by, for instance, another dog who is an unknown dog who, maybe it's barking behind a fence, who knows? And they're trying to keep that dog in that straight line on that sidewalk, walking right next to that fence going, it's okay, it's okay.
Right.
What do you mean it's okay?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Threatening you guys. Why are you trying to convince the dog that isn't a threat when we all know it's a threat?
Right.
Stop. Just why don't you just say, you know what? I agree with you. That dog is a threat. Let's go over here.
Yep.
Yep.
A lot of
having that connection and saying, you know what? I see the world the way you see it. I see that's a threat too. If you never agree with your dog, if everything your dog perceives as a threat, you always try to convince them it's okay.
Right.
How is a dog ever supposed to know when it really is? You know, how many dog trainers out there, for instance, tell people, don't let your dog meet other dogs on the walk. When your dog's on leash, don't let them greet dogs you don't know, right?
Yeah.
All of them, right? And it's good advice. Why? Why do we tell them that? Well, we tell them that because we know that other dog could be potentially dangerous.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yet, when our dog shows signs of uncertainty, when it's approaching another dog head on, we try to convince them it's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
We're lying to them. We know it's not okay. That's why we don't let them meet. So why are we trying to convince our dog it's okay? Why don't we teach our dog, hey, I see that as a potential problem. You see it as a potential problem. So let's, as a family, come up with a plan of how we deal with potential problems.
Right.
You're never going to remove all threats from the dog's world.
No.
You're never going to remove all things that make the dogs feel uncertain. So you have to say, when you do feel uncertain, here's a healthy way of dealing with it.
Right. And when we talked earlier,
dog training doesn't do that. They just say, no, but you're in heel. So regardless of whether you feel uncertain or not, you got to stay in heel. And the dog goes, well, then my only option is to bark and lunge and make sure that dog doesn't come near me.
Yep.
Because I have to deal with this emotion that I'm feeling.
Right. Yep. I feel like a lot of times I find myself explaining that kind of thing to a client or just in my own head if I'm writing out a blog post or something, to where it's, you almost something I say a lot is you can't really blame the dog. Considering the circumstances, I would probably do the same thing. From the dog's perspective, it makes sense what they're doing. I get it. And so now you have to ask yourself, I as an owner, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to make this different? And people don't always think of things that way. I think a lot of it has to do with this new marketing style that it's hey, all the time, no questions asked, no BS, no whatever, just straight up obedient. And I'm yeah, but your dog has to trust that you have their interest in mind. And even if that's the reality, which of course, I'm sure it is, but
people have it in theory, but they don't know how to execute.
Exactly. So the dog is unclear. So the dog is wait, but dad said don't move, but I don't know, and I think that's definitely an important thing to bring up, because advocating for the dog is something that I don't hear enough. Or sometimes I'll hear it, but people get confused as to well, if you're supposed to advocate for your dog, then how can you also pressure them within a training program? I'm well, of course I have to get toward the objective. What training is, the dog needs to learn how to be less reactive or more stable or more focused or more patient or whatever, or just generally trained. But that's not the same thing as when stuff is really just outside of the realm of okay, this is acceptable. I need you to just hang out and chill. Then let it move, get him out of there and help him understand I'm here for you. It's you were saying, let the dog know that you're listening back. There has to be a certain fairness so that they understand that I don't need to make this move because, this guy's going to take care of it.
And when the dog understands that you recognize what they see as a threat, that you also recognize it as a potential threat, then they're more likely to trust your guidance.
Right.
But if you're acting like it's no big deal, and dog goes, well, why the hell would I listen to you?
Yeah.
This is obviously a dangerous situation, and you're totally oblivious to it. So I cannot trust your guidance whatsoever.
It's like
you're in a parallel universe right now.
It's like they see ghosts, and like we act like we don't see ghosts.
Exactly. Or like there's like not even ghosts. Like there's like legitimately like a lion escaped from the zoo and it's standing right in front of you baring its teeth, and you're just gonna walk straight at it like it's okay. No, it's not okay. It's not okay. And it's okay to feel fearful. It's okay to feel uncertain, but let's make sure that when you feel that way, that we have a healthy way of reacting to it.
Right.
You know, for me, how my dog feels in a situation is more important than what my dog does in a situation.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because what they do is going to be driven by how they feel. And then what happens is when the dog learns they can rely on you, they don't get so stressed. They go, oh, there's a dog, but I don't have to worry because I'm with a human that gets it. So I can stay relaxed. But if they don't feel like they're with a human that gets it, then they start triggering their stress the moment they see that dog, because they're like, man, here's a dog. I'm stuck on a leash with this bozo who has no idea what's going on.
Right. You know, it's funny. I tell people that all the time too. I feel like it's cool to hear you say it, that it's like, you know, how a dog feels will directly influence what they do. What they know how to do is one thing. How they feel in the moment is a different thing. And sometimes you'll start to see this like mix of those two things. And what I notice too is when an owner doesn't get it, or when they are actively just pushing the dog through it anyway, it's more pressure than if the dog, like sometimes I'll sit and just write about like, what would a dog do if there wasn't the owner? It's just a dog outside. He'd run.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
if he's stuck on a leash, you've eliminated that option. So of course the dog is reactive. It's like, not only now is this dog out here and the lion has already escaped from the zoo. That's problem A. But problem B is dad's here. It's not just a matter of me surviving. This guy's here too, and I'm stuck to him. And like now I've got even less options than I would with just me being loose and a tiger.
I'm stuck to this guy who thinks that this lion is a pussycat.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean that's just a huge part of it. And again, it just comes down to seeing the world through your dog's eyes. You know,
right.
seeing the world from their perspective, and just saying. But you know, I mean, as far as this whole thing about, you know, how do you reconcile advocating the dog for the dog with also, like, you know, pushing them when needed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's, you know, again, I always tell people, I think the biggest I don't want to say myth, but one of the things that gets perpetuated in dog training that I think is so wrong is this idea. You hear it all the time. Oh, your problem is that you treat your dog like a child. How often do you hear that, right?
But then I would challenge that. I challenge that
wholeheartedly with that statement.
Yeah.
Your problem is that you don't treat your dog like a child.
Because at least you'd give your child rules.
Rules. Most people treat their dog maybe like an infant.
Right.
But if they treat their dog like maybe a 5-year-old,
right,
they'd be in a way better position. And what do we do with 5-year-olds? You know, I have a 5-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where I know he needs to have experiences that are good for him, and he's resistant to those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that if I want him to grow up and to be a well-adjusted, healthy adult, I need to put a little bit of pressure on him to have those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we go to the soccer field to play soccer, and he's a little bit nervous, and I go on the field with him, and then I disappear into the background. And it's a little bit stressful for him. But I know that I just let him cling to me, that he's not going to grow up into a healthy adult.
Right.
And sometimes pushing them outside of their comfort zone is part of advocating for them.
Yeah, my little microdoses of stress help you learn how to tolerate more stress.
And done in the right way and for the right reasons. And by the way, this isn't a thing of like positive training versus
no.
This is psychology. This is psychology.
And even good positive-based trainers know this, because positive-based training can come with stress too, right? And the best positive-based trainers know this, that you have to sometimes ask for more, and sometimes that's going to be stressful, right? And so there's nothing that's incongruent about those two things if you're approaching it in the right way.
Right. And that's what I try to tell people is, you know, it's training by its very nature, just like schooling it's going to be stressful. Just change in and of itself is going to be stressful. Dogs are creatures of habit, just like us, even if the whole process is purely food-based. I mean, one thing that I wanted to touch on, because we talked about board and trains a while back when we were talking about like the deaf dog and my feral dog and stuff like that, was it's just for you know, younger trainers to be clear. The crazy thing about board and trains, and definitely make sure to explain this to a client if you feel that for whatever reason the board and train's the way to go and they're unsure, make sure that they understand an obedience program, a board and train, isn't just teaching commands. There's all the stuff that you need to do on the back end just anyway, frankly, but that help the dog, you know, kind of through osmosis. Like the feral dog, just having him in the room with the other dogs in their crates, just being around, just going on rotations with other dogs, just going on walks. And even if like before, like these days he plays in groups, which, you know, and everything is fine. But before all that, just feeding all at the same time and seeing that, oh, this is kind of what the routine is. And you see him start to find his little place in there, so to speak. All that stuff does a lot for them. And it really kind of shows them, it kind of shows them the way a little bit. And, you know, and that's something that I wanted to bring up too, was like, you know, make sure that you understand obedience is one thing, but relationship, environment, socialization, all this stuff, routine, it creates the complete picture of what a trained dog should have at their disposal as far as like tools to add to their belt.
Yeah.
All righty, guys. We want to thank everybody for listening. We have our special guest, Tyler Muto, here on the Dog Trainers Podcast. We want you guys to make sure you guys follow what he is up to and what he's doing. So go ahead and check him out on Instagram at Tyler_Muto. Or also check out his project, Consider the Dog, at consider_the_dog. And go ahead and check him out at considerthedog.com as well, where you guys can get a lot of great content. Some of it free, some of it paid, but you guys will definitely have a lot better insight in dog training approaches. If you guys have behavioral cases, I think that will definitely give you guys a huge upper hand in learning how to deal with those specific cases. Again, Tyler, we want to thank you so much for being here on the podcast. If you were going to say one thing to some dog trainers who are aspiring, what would you tell them?
Learn how to listen.
Beautiful.
Yeah, learn how to listen to the dogs, to the clients, to your teammates, your staff, your wife, your kids.
Learning how to listen. That's the only way we learn, right? Thank you guys so much. If you guys like this podcast, please go ahead and like us, whatever platform you're on. We are on all major podcast providers, and we're also here on YouTube. So please leave us a comment and subscribe. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and write us at dogtrainerspodcast@gmail.com. And also, last but not least, we're going to go ahead and make sure you guys add us to the UNTAMEDDOGCO on Instagram or CANISBEHAVIOR on Instagram. Again, thank you so much to our special guest, Tyler Muto, and we hope to have you back soon one of these days, man.
Yeah, I'd love to. Just let me know.
All right. Really appreciate you, man. You have a great rest of your night.
Have a good one, man. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We'll see you next time.